6 months ago, Donald Trump did something no American president had ever done to India. He imposed a 50% tariff. 50%. The highest tariff America has ever imposed on a strategic ally. His message was clear. Bow down, stop buying Russian oil, accept American terms, or pay the price. And India? India looked Trump straight in the eye and said, watch us. Today, we're talking about something that I genuinely believe will go down in history books. You know, when I started researching this episode, I thought I was just covering a trade deal. The India-EU Free Trade Agreement. Sounds boring, right? Sounds like something economists discuss over chai while the rest of us fall asleep. But the more I dug into this story, the more I realized this isn't just economics. This is geopolitics. This is strategy. This is India saying to the world, we don't need permissions anymore. And the timing? The timing is key. Because while Trump is in Davos right now, literally as I'm recording this, talking about buying Greenland of all things, India just secured what the European Union is calling the mother of all deals. In caps, all caps, all right? The mother of all deals. Have a listen to this.
And right after Davos, the next weekend, I will travel to India. But we are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. Indeed, some call it the mother of all deals. That geopolitical shocks can and must serve as an opportunity for Europe. And in my view, the seismic change we are going through today is an opportunity, in fact, a necessity, to build a new form of European independence.
That was Ursula von der Leyen, European Commission President. In her words, mother of all deals. I must say, it's a pretty big statement. Now, 2 billion people, 1/4 of the world's GDP, the largest market access India has ever negotiated. And here's the kicker. This deal exists because of Trump's tariff. Not despite them, because of them. So grab your chai, get comfortable, because today I'm going to break down exactly how India turned America's punishment into Europe's partnership. And I promise you, by the end of this episode, you'll understand why January 27th, 2026 will be remembered as the day India changed the global trade map forever.
You're listening to Nelson John 360. Nelson John 360.
Hello and welcome back to Nelson John 360. And I'm your host, Nelson John. All right, to understand why this EU deal is so significant, let's go back in time. Let's go back to, say, August 2025. Back to when things got really, really ugly between India and America. Now look, India and America have had trade tensions before. It's not like it's something new. But what Trump did in 2025, well, that was different. That was personal. It started in April 2025. Trump announced what he called reciprocal tariff, 25% on Indian goods. Well, his logic, India has high tariffs on American products. So America should do the same. Tit for tat. Fine. Not great. But India could handle that. Our exporters have dealt with tariffs before. You adjust your margins, find new buyers, maybe absorb some costs. It hurts, but you survive. Then August happened. Trump signed an executive order adding another 25%, bringing the total to 50%. And his reason? This is where it gets interesting. His reason wasn't trade. It was oil. We all know Russian oil was the main reason. Now, India has been buying crude oil from Russia, has been for years. It is cheaper for a country of 1.4 billion people trying to keep fuel prices affordable That matters a lot. Trump didn't like this. He said India was funding Russia's war machine. He demanded India to stop buying Russian oil. India said no, and Trump went all out. Now, here's what made India really upset. And I want you to pay attention to this because it shows you the hypocrisy. India's Ministry of External Affairs pointed out that while America was punishing India for buying Russian oil, the United States and European Union were still buying other goods from Russia. Different goods, but still Russian trade. India said, and I'm paraphrasing here, we need affordable energy for 1.4 billion people. This is about our survival, not politics. And you're going to lecture us while you maintain your own trade with Russia? India called the tariffs unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. These are strong words from our usually diplomatic foreign ministry. But here's the thing about tariffs. They're not just numbers on a policy document. They're not just economic indicators for analysts to debate. They're people, they're jobs, they're families. All right, let me paint you a picture. Now, a place in Tamil Nadu called Tirupur, all right, they are famous for knitwear. Thousands of small factories employing lakhs of workers. Many of these factories, you know who their biggest customer is? America. Overnight, their products became 50% more expensive for American buyers. When you're competing with Bangladesh and Vietnam who don't face these tariffs, that's not just a competitive disadvantage. It's more like a death sentence. The Global Trade Research Initiative, which is a think tank in Delhi, warned that textiles, gems, jewelry, shrimp, and carpets would face up to 70% collapse in exports. 70%. That's not a downturn, that is an industry being wiped out, I would say. And here's what breaks my heart. These aren't big corporates with deep pockets. They are small businesses, small family businesses, third-generation craftsmen in Surat cutting diamonds, fourth-generation weavers in Varanasi making silk. One leather exporter in Agra, he told reporters, and this quote stuck with me. You know what he said? This is an absolute shock. My clients, including Zara, we have spent years building this relationship. And now I don't know if we'll survive this. That's not statistics. That's someone's life, someone's livelihood, someone's legacy being threatened because of a trade war he had nothing to do with. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. Here's where India showed what strategic autonomy actually looks like in practice. Most countries, when America imposes tariffs like these, they panic, they negotiate, they concede. They basically say, all right, what do you want? And start making deals on America's terms. India didn't do that. India's commerce minister said, and this is the actual quote, India will not bow down to the United States. Instead, India would focus on attracting new markets. And this is crucial. You know why? India didn't retaliate with its own tariffs. That would have been the obvious move, right? That's what countries usually do. Trade war escalation. But India played a different game here. India looked at the map and said, if America doesn't want our goods at fair prices, well, someone else will. And that someone else was Europe. While America was putting up walls, India started building bridges. And the biggest bridge, a free trade agreement with the European Union that had been stuck in negotiations, say, for about 20 years. Trump thought tariffs would bring India to its knees. Instead, tariffs gave India the urgency to finally close the biggest trade deal in its history. And that's not defeat. That's judo, using your opponent's force against them. Right? Now, let's talk about the India-EU Free Trade Agreement, because this deal didn't come out of nowhere. It has a history, and a long history. And understanding that history helps you understand why this moment is so significant. India and the European Union started negotiating a trade deal back in 2007. Yes, 2007. Now that's almost 20 years ago. I was probably still figuring out how to use Orkut back then. For those of you who don't know what Orkut was, it was pretty big back then. It was like a Facebook before it got popular. All right. And for 6 years, they negotiated round after round. And then in 2013, the talks collapsed, just stopped. Why? Well, there were a lot of sticking points. Automobile tariffs. India didn't want cheap European cars flooding the market and killing our auto industry. Wine and spirits. Europe wanted easier access for their wines. India had concerns. Data protection for IT companies, Indian IT companies. Intellectual property rules, labor standards. It was complicated. Both sides had red lines they wouldn't cross. And when you have that many red lines, sometimes the map just doesn't work. So for 9 years, the file gathered dust. Most negotiators thought it was dead permanently. But in June 2022, India and the European Union formally relaunched negotiations. Now, what changed here? Why did both sides suddenly get so serious again? Well, few things. First, COVID. The pandemic exposed just how fragile global supply chains were. Europe realized it was too dependent on China for manufacturing. And India was positioning itself as the China plus one alternative. Second, geopolitics. Russia-Ukraine war. Rising tensions with China. The world was becoming more uncertain, and both India and Europe needed reliable partners. But here's what really exhilarated everything, and the catalyst that turned "we should do this someday" into "we need to do this right now." And I'm sure we all know what it is. Trump's tariffs. When America imposed the 50% tariff on India, it sent a message to the entire world. America under Trump is unpredictable. America can turn on its allies overnight. America is not a reliable trade partner. And Europe was watching. Europe was also facing Trump's tariff threats. Just recently, Trump threatened 10% tariffs on Denmark, Sweden, France, Germany, Netherlands, and Finland over the Greenland issue. So both India and Europe found themselves in the same boat, both facing American protectionism, both needing to diversify, both looking for partners who wouldn't turn on them based on one man's mood that morning. And here's where it gets really interesting. Just weeks before the big EU announcement, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz visited India. Now, Germany is the biggest economy in Europe. When Germany moves, Europe follows. And Merz came to India with a very clear message. He said, "I want you to hear this carefully. India is a key partner for Germany. Germany, as the most populous and economically powerful EU state, and India, as the world's largest democracy, are united by fundamental values." Fundamental values, not just economic interests. Values, democracy, rule of law, human rights. Now, these are the things that bind India and Europe together. And these are exactly the things that are becoming uncertain in the American relationship. And here's what Merz said. He said new trade agreements with India could compensate for the negative impact of Trump's tariffs and possibly exceed that compensation. Think about that. Germany is saying, whatever America is taking away from you, we can give you more. And then came Davos, January 2026, the World Economic Forum, the global elite gathering in Switzerland to discuss the state of the world. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen took the stage, and she made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the global business community. She said, and I want to quote this exactly, she said India and the EU are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement, and then she called it the mother of all deals. You heard the clip that I played for you right at the beginning, right? The mother of all deals, she mentions. She said this deal would create a market for 2 billion people, accounting for almost a quarter of global GDP. 2 billion people, 25% of the world's economy. Let that sink in for a moment. The European Union has 450 million people. India has 1.4 billion. Combined, that's nearly 2 billion consumers. 2 billion people who will now have easier access to each other's goods and services. For context, America's population is about 330 million. China is 1.4 billion. India, EU combined, is bigger than either of them. This is not just a trade deal. It's a new economic superpower forming through partnership. All right, so we've talked about the politics. I've talked about the geopolitics. Now let me talk about what everyone actually wants to know. What's in this deal? How does it affect you? If you're a worker, a business owner, a consumer, a job seeker, how does the mother of all deals actually mean for your life? Let me try and break this down sector by sector. First up, textiles. This is huge for India. Right now, Indian textiles face 12 to 16% tariffs when entering European markets. That might not sound like much, but in an industry with very thin margins, that's the difference between getting the contract and losing it to Bangladesh or Vietnam, who often have duty-free access. Under this FTA, those tariffs are expected to go to zero or almost close to zero. Think about what that means for Tirupur, for Surat, for every textile hub in India. Suddenly our products are competitive again, not just in America, but in the entire European Union. 27 countries, 450 million consumers. The job that Trump's tariff threatened, many of them could come back, not selling to America, but selling to Germany, France, Italy, Spain, the EU. That's what market diversification looks like in practice. Next, gems and jewelry. For those of you who do not know, India is a global hub for diamond cutting and jewelry manufacturing. Surat processes something like, say, about 90% of the world's diamonds. Yeah, 90%. This industry was devastated by Trump's tariffs. Absolutely devastated. Orders from America dried up almost overnight. The EU deal now opens up new markets. European luxury consumers are huge buyers of jewelry, by the way. And with reduced tariffs, Indian jewelry becomes more competitive against competitors from Thailand, China, and elsewhere. Onto leather and footwear. Same story here, or rather similar story here, currently facing 8 to 12% tariffs in India. After the FTA, much lower or zero. Remember that exporter that I mentioned about earlier, the one who supplies to Zara? Well, Zara is a Spanish company, part of the European market. This deal could be his lifeline. Onto pharmaceuticals, yeah. India is already the pharmacy of the world. We produce a huge percentage of global generic drugs. The FTA includes better regulatory cooperation. What this means in simpler terms is that it becomes easier for Indian pharma companies to get their drugs approved and sold in Europe. Less red tape, faster access. And here's a bonus. Pharma was already exempt from Trump's tariffs. So now Indian pharma has both the American market and improved access to Europe. That's a massive competition advantage. IT and services. This is big for our tech professionals. The FTA includes provisions for easier movement of professionals. What does that mean? It means an Indian software engineer, consultant, or business professional will have an easier time getting work visas and permits in Europe. Right now, if you're an Indian IT professional, your options are often America, which has insane H-1B visa issues, or stay in India doing remote work. This deal adds Europe as a much more accessible option. And European tech hubs like Berlin, Amsterdam, Dublin, Stockholm are booming. Now, let me talk about what India didn't give up. Because a good deal isn't just about what you gain. It's about what you protect also. Right? Agriculture, completely kept out of the deal. So India was absolutely clear about this. Agriculture employs about 44% of the Indian workforce. Almost half of the country depends on farming for their livelihood. Europe wanted access to India's food markets, dairy products, sugar, wine, and India said, no, not negotiable. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, and this is his quote, "For me, the interest of farmers, small businesses, and dairy are topmost. My government will ensure they aren't impacted." And he delivered on that promise. the European Commission confirmed that dairy, sugar, and several other sensitive agricultural products are completely outside of the agreement scope. Think about what this means. India got access to a 450 million people market. India got zero tariffs on textiles, leather, jewelry. India got easier movement for IT professionals. And India's still protecting its farmers. That's not a compromise. That's winning on both sides of the negotiation. All right, let's talk about the 26th of January 2026, Republic Day, and why this year's celebration is going to be unlike any we've seen before. Every year, India invites a foreign leader to be the chief guest at the Republic Day parade, right? It's our biggest diplomatic invitation of the year. It signals who India considers is most important partner at that moment. In the past, chief guests have included Obama, Putin, Macron, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. It's a who's who of global power. This year, India invited not one, but both presidents of the United Union. That's European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, European Council President Antonio Costa. Both of them together. This has never happened before. The top leaders of the entire European Union, all 27 countries attending India's Republic Day parade together. Think about the optics for a moment. January 26th, this year, 10,000 special guests in attendance. India's military might on full display. Rafale jets, Su-30s. For the first time ever, the Indian Army will showcase a phased battle array formation. Fighter jets in formation overhead, 30 tableaus from across India rolling down the avenue. And standing there next to the Indian President and Prime Minister, the two most powerful people in Europe. The theme this year, 150 years of Vande Mataram. I bow to thee, Mother, India's anthem of pride and independence. And the very next day, January 27th, the India-EU summit, where the deal gets announced, maybe signed. Well, this isn't coincidence. I would call it a choreography. India is sending a message to the entire world, a visual, undeniable message. To America, you thought tariffs would isolate India. Look at who's standing with us now. To China, we have options, powerful options. To every country watching, India doesn't beg for partnerships. India attracts them. You know, there's a famous quote from the game of chess. The threat is stronger than the execution. But in this case, India didn't just threaten to find new partners, it actually did. Okay, before I wrap up, I want to zoom out because this story isn't just about one trade deal. It's massive as it is. It's about where India is going and how India is getting there. For decades, India's foreign policy was about balance. Don't lean too far towards America. Don't lean far towards Russia. Do not upset China. Manage everyone. Offend no one. And that worked. For a certain stage of our development, that worked. But the India for 2026 is different from the India of 1996 or even say 2026. We're the fourth largest economy in the world. We're projected to be the third within a few years. We have 1.4 billion people. We have nuclear weapons. We have a space program that just landed on the moon's South Pole. India isn't just a developing country trying to survive anymore. India is a major power trying to shape the world order. You know, Fareed Zakaria, he was at Davos this week and he said something that I think captures this perfectly. He said, time is on India's side. India has been doing extremely impressively economically. And this is basically, at this point, fair to say that it is a 25-year story. India has been progressing. 25 years of progress, and this EU deal is the next chapter. All right, I want to say something specifically to our young lads listening to this episode. Hopefully the college students, the fresh graduates, the people starting off their career. This deal matters for you, specifically for you. If you're in IT, this deal makes it easier to work in Europe, new visa pathways, new opportunities. If you're in business, this deal opens 450 million new customers for anything you want to sell. If you're in manufacturing, this deal brings new investments, new technology partnerships, new jobs. The world is changing. The old rules are breaking down. America is turning inward. China is facing its own problems. And in this chaos, India has an opportunity. An opportunity to be the partner the world needs. An opportunity to grow. An opportunity to lead. This EU deal is proof that opportunity exists. And it's yours to grab. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end. This was Nelson John 360. If this episode resonated with you, if it made you think, if it made you proud, do me a favor, share it. Share it with someone who needs to understand why this deal matters. Share it with someone who's worried about their job in exports. Probably share it with an uncle who only watches WhatsApp forwards. Hit that follow button on your podcast app. Hit that subscribe button and the bell icon if you are catching this on YouTube. I promise you, I have more amazing episodes coming up. Follow me on Instagram, NelsonJohn360. Yes, you can look me up at NelsonJohn360. Until next time, this is Nelson John reminding you the world is changing and India is changing. Namaste, and I'll see you in the next one.